Hello and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I'm back with another emergency card kit. If you're new to the channel, an emergency card is one where we make the card ahead of time, but we leave the sentiment off. That way, when an occasion arises, we can choose the card that best fits the recipient and the sentiment that best fits the occasion. I gotta tell you, we're going straight into stepped up cards today. There's still gonna be a second video next week where we step it up even more. The card sketch has all the measurements you need for a flat card, but I love this box card and it was highly requested. So let's give it a whirl. So let's take a look at the kit. We have caffeinated sentiments this time. There was overwhelming response for coffee and tea sentiments. So those are on here. And then I don't drink coffee. So I told you guys that and you were incredible. Many of these are things you guys recommended for sentiments. But if you are a soda drinker like I am, you're on here too. So hopefully we've got a little bit of everybody covered. If you have ideas for other sentiment themes, please put them in the comments below. It always helps if you leave like one sample sentiment or more, or as many as you want. But that just gives me a sense of the tone that you like as well. So here we have, I must espresso my thanks. Thanks a latte, sending warm hugs. Coffee makes everything possible. Caffeine because adulting is hard. Frappy birthday to you. Coffee is my love language. Coffee for your sanity. Hope your birthday is a latte fun. You are fabulous. There's nothing worse than finding out it's a Pepsi place. When I found out the place where I work is a Pepsi place, that was defeating. I have to like bring my own to work. I should anyway, right? It's cheaper, but in a pinch, I really wish they had my back. There's nothing worse than finding out it's a Coke place. I don't know let me know if if you feel that way. I know one Diet Pepsi drinker that feels very strongly that way, but I just need to know. With enough Diet Coke, we can rule the world. With enough caffeine, we can rule the world. You're tea-rific to my best tea. So we have that with and without the circle. If you're new, these are 1 3/4 inch, and then the circle on the first page is slightly larger than that. So you just slide your punch in until you can't see the circle, and then you'll know they're centered. But if you are using a different size circle or a different shape altogether, that second page is really great. This is an important time to mention that I didn't notice anything that needed to be changed spelling-wise for Australian and British spelling. If I missed something, please let me know. Just put it in the comments and I will get a second one updated for you. And then we also have the same sentiments, but in strip sentiments. So we're going to make 2 cards today, one with the circle sentiments, one with the strip sentiments, and we have 4 different fonts for this. I got really good feedback on the new scripty font, but please, if you haven't yet and you have thoughts on whether you'll use it, whether it's legible, big enough, that sort of thing, let me know. I am happy. I want your feedback. I want to make sure we're going to use these, right? And then we have our card sketch. So there are 2 pages to the card sketch this time. There's all of our normal like measurements. You can print this at 100% and it will print to scale. Ideas for stepping it up, cutting instructions. But there's a second page. Sometimes these come out with the second kit, but only because you guys have been behind. Ideally, I'd like them to come out together. So they did this time. Our card base, this is another pop-up card. I did not create this style of pop-up card. It's all over Pinterest, and I made one in a quick and easy card kit video for spellbinders, and it got a lot of feedback with people asking for instructions, measurements, that sort of thing. So here's the card base, and then there's a separate front panel. I will show you both of those, and then in the stepped up video we'll get to the gift card holder, but everything you need for both videos is on these 2 sheets. Both of the cards we're making today are going to be pop-up cards, but please keep in mind you could create this design without making a pop-up card. Just follow the guides for the mats and layers and put it onto an A2 card base. But you guys are great card makers, and so I didn't feel like you maybe needed me to show you how to do that part since it overlaps so much of what we're going to do as we put the pop-up card together. So I'm bringing in this page. This is the cutting guide, and this is going to help us to create our pop-up card base. So my card base is 10.5 inches by 4.25. It is not a full 11. All right. And I'm going to bring that into my scoreboard, and I am going to score at 1.5, 2.5, 4, and 5. And once I'm done, I am going to trim just a sliver off of this flap here, that 1.5 inch tab. Next, I'm going to bring my scoreboard in with this other panel. It's the front panel. It is 5.25 by 3 inches. I'll put the long side at the top and score at 1/4 inch and 1.25 inches. We made a pop-up card in the last kit, so this part should feel familiar. I'm going to take all of my score lines and I'm going to fold them like mountain folds, okay? And then they will just curl around and create a box at the bottom of our card. We removed that sliver so that it fits a little bit better. Otherwise, this kind of pops up a little bit and will sit at an angle. So to glue this down, I am going to fold on the second score line. Do you see this? I have a 1.5 inch tab, score line 1, and then here's my second score line. I'm going to fold there, and I'm going to add glue only to the 1.5 inch flap. Okay, there's my glue. Then I am going to take this large piece. There's one score line right here, butted up against my tab. I'm going to fold on that score line and just press it flat. When I do it this way, I know that this is going to fold flat and fit into my envelope. But there's my box, okay? The pieces to decorate my box are all here. So if you wanted a different color just in this top section, that's the gray layer that would be 4.25 by 4 inches. The pattern paper layer, I didn't put in the sketch, but I have cut one here. It is 4 by 3.75 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. I know that that piece is ready to go. Then I have this pink layer here is 3 by 4 inches, and the purple layer is 2.75 by 3.75. So if you were making the card flat, you would have, here's your purple layer, and your pink layer would only go to the bottom here. But instead, we're making the pop-up version, and that's where we had that front panel that we cut and scored, okay? So I am going to fold this on both of my score lines, again, like mountain folds, okay? Ultimately, this is going to go at the bottom of our box, and then that little flap will glue to the back. I want to decorate these before I put them down. I'll be honest, coffee cards were a challenge for me because I don't drink coffee, and then I was like, the card has to be brown, and it spiraled. It spiraled. So I decided to dig through my stash. This is like really old paper, I think from Michael's. And then I'm going to do some of my own pattern paper, right? You don't have to go buy brand new stuff. So I have this Flower Frenzy embossing folder, and I'm going to run these both through this folder. This is from Spellbinders, so it's huge. This pattern is fairly random, so it doesn't matter if I get them straight when I lay them in here, and I'm just going to wipe them with a baby wipe, and then I'm going to flip them over. I like the wet side touching the bumpy side, and I will run that through. It's worth noting that this embossing folder is on sale if you're watching this video as it comes out. Spellbinders is having their warehouse sale. I have like a whole video about it. It's my favorite sale of the year. They do it twice a year. I'll link that video at the end. But yeah, this is half off right now. So here's the texture on that. And that's going to add just a little extra something to my card when I go to put this together. I love that. When I glue down these embossed panels, there is a lot of texture, so I go a little bit heavier with my glue. Sometimes I'll even bring in my Beacon 3-in-1, which is a solvent-based glue. just because you can put more on there and it doesn't make the paper wet. Yeah, since it's solvent based, you're not adding any water, but I didn't feel like it. Okay, so I have centered that on the big flap of my panel, all right? And again, if you didn't want to make the pop-up card, you wouldn't have this flap and you would just have this piece on a flat card. And then this one I will center onto the box here. So down at the bottom, we have measurements for the pink layer. That's really the background on my box. Is 4 1/4 by 1 1/2, but if you wanted a different color for that, it's really easy to add that layer. And then the purple layer is this embossed panel that is 4 by 1 1/4. When I go to add this piece, I'm gonna start by adding just the bottom to my card base first. So I'm gonna add glue only at the bottom, and I'm gonna use my fingers to kind of let me know where that is. And I'm gonna add plenty of glue because that embossing means there's not contact along all of those spaces. I'm centering it visually, and then I'm gonna use my thumb at the bottom. I wanna make sure this piece isn't gonna go past that score line, and I'm actually gonna push my box the other direction to help me with that. If this comes down past the bottom of the box, it's sometimes wonky when you go to put it on display. Okay. All right. When we put this in our A2 envelope, we need this to fold upward. And that means that we have to glue this little tab right here while we're folding upward. So just like before, I am going to fold on the second score line. I have my short tab in my first score line, and then I have my second score line. So it's going to fold here, and then we'll press the whole thing flat, and it will attach to the background exactly where it needs to be. So I'm going to add my glue, again, just to that little tab, and I'm going to be careful. I don't want it oozing out the sides. I like wet glue for this, but if you prefer like a double-sided tape, I would use a really strong one. I kept this tab short so it's not as visible, but it means you've got less contact area. First score line, second score line. I am going to kind of push this back with my finger, and I'm going to fold on that second score line. Okay, once it's back there, I can let go. Then I'm going to push up from the bottom and press everything flat. Okay, and then, right, we have that attached right back there. It's not super visible, right? So my pattern paper still gets to show off. And I have a stand-up box card. It's really similar to the last set of box cards we did, okay? Then I have my circle sentiment. And I'm gonna use some of these foam adhesive squares just because I wanted a little more dimension. If we're already gonna make a box card, I'm here for it. I'm adding a little bit of wet glue. And I'm gonna center this at the top of my front panel. For a sentiment, I'm bringing in my circle sentiment, and I'm gonna grab this with enough caffeine, we can rule the world. I feel like that one could go to pretty much anybody. And I'm gonna use my temporary adhesive to add this on here. I like these sort of universal sentiments as a placeholder, and then I can change my mind later. But if I'm in a real hurry, it's ready to go. So that's our first card, right? And I think it's quick and easy, but with that pop-up feature, it's super cute and packs a big punch, and it still folds flat and fits into an A2 envelope. It has a little bit of bulk, but that should still go through the mail just fine for a regular stamp, okay? So that's it. We're gonna start our second card the same way. We're creating our card base. I have a piece of cardstock that is 10 1/2 by 4 1/4, and I'll bring in my scoreboard, and I'm gonna score at 1 1/2, 2 1/2, 4, and 5. Okay, so that's the card base. Then we have our front panel, and I'm gonna score at 1/4 inch and 1¼ inches. If you don't like trying to get in here, I'm right-handed, that's kind of challenging. You could also just flip that around. You could score at 5 inches and 4 inches, and that would also work. We're going to assemble our box card the same way. So I am folding all of these score lines like mountain folds. Okay. I forgot to trim off a little sliver at the bottom. I'm just going to use my scissors. It doesn't have to be perfect. No one's going to notice this. Okay. And then once I get all of that done, I'm going to fold. Here's my first tab. I'm going to fold on the second score line and add glue to the first tab, that 1½ inch tab. That tab butts right up against this score line, and we're going to fold on that one and press it flat. That creates the box for our card. Okay. Then I can start decorating. I have this piece, and I'm going to fold on those 2 score lines. Okay, again, mountain folds for both. And that just helps me to center things. So I am going to add this piece of pattern paper. That's my purple layer, 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I'm going to center that in the largest panel. Then I'm going to take the same pattern paper and I'm going to add it to the front box. Again, I skipped that pink layer, that matte layer, and I'm just going to use the brown of my card base. I have this purple layer that I cut for the background, but I thought it looked a little plain, even though it's the color that I want. So we're going to stamp on that and dress it up a little bit. So I'm bringing in this Simon Says Stamp thank you text. And I like the wording on it, but I also like how small it is. I like how far apart the lines are. I could put this in my stamping tool, but I don't really feel like I need to. I'm just going to lay it flat on my work surface, and then I'm bringing in some flannel ink. It's a light gray ink. I like the Simon Says Stamp Positively Everything inks. I have 2 ink lines that I use, Altenew and Simon Says Stamp, and this is my favorite for stamping. I just feel like it gives me great coverage the first time, so I don't usually need to put something in my MISTI for that. So I want to make sure this is straight on my panel, so I'm actually going to double check, make sure I'm going the right way, and then I'm going to line this up with a line of text, and I'm going to sort of set that edge down first and then lay it flat, and then we'll grab a piece of scratch paper and just press over the top. And there's my background, and it just adds a little bit of subtle interest, and I love that. It's a coffee card, so I'm busting out the breakfast buddies from Brutus Monroe. You can get this from scrapbook.com now. I think it's 20 bucks on scrapbook.com and probably at Brutus Monroe too. But this was their die of the month. And it's a subscription kit that you can order like just the one once you know what it is. And when you do that, it's 15 bucks. So I will link to that. Some months are not my cup of tea, but when it is, they make some of my very favorite dies, and they're always really simple to put together. So I have 3 pieces for this coffee cup, super, super simple. And I am going to ink blend just a little bit, like just a little bit to make it look a little bit rounder. This is Latte. It's just a really pale brown ink. And I'm going to come in lightly from the sides. You don't have to be some kind of like magical ink blender to do this. All I'm doing is starting off the paper and then coming on, and you can see like now it's lighter in the front and darker on the sides. I'm going to do the same thing with this little sleeve, but I'm going to go a little heavier since it's already brown. I feel like you can ink blend when there's only 3 pieces in the die set, right? It's really quick assembly. So there is a little like bump out on the cup where the sleeve goes. And then I'm just going to add this to the top. And now we can start putting things together, right? So I have my subtle text background, and I'm going to center that on the top of my card. Then I'm going to add this piece so that it butts right up against the bottom, right? I'm only putting glue at the bottom. Okay. And I'm going to center it visually. And then I'm going to press this down and flat just to make sure it's not going below that score line. Okay. That is my MINC machine warming up, friends. We're going to foil things. Just wait. Okay, then we want glue on the tab, and we will fold on not the first, but the second score line. So that's going to go back, and we're going to fold up. Okay. So I'm adding glue to my tab. This is barely art glue. It's really strong glue. I'm not going to have any issues with this once it dries. Okay. So I'm kind of pushing back on this base while I fold on the second score line. And then I will push up on the bottom to fold the whole thing flat. And that's it. Okay. Now I have my box on the bottom and I'm attached at the top, and it will fold flat. Here's my little coffee cup that I love so much, and I just think it really pops on that blue. So I'm going to add that with a little bit of wet glue right in the center. Now is perhaps the time to tell you that this is the second time I filmed this video. The first time through, everything went wrong. And then I finished it anyway. I got to the end and I didn't like my cards. I just wasn't happy with them. They felt kind of plain, which is crazy for a box card. So we're just doing all the things this video. And I am going to choose a strip sentiment that says coffee for your sanity. To trim the strips, I put this into my trimmer and I cut it in half so that I end up with tick marks on this half and on that half. I'm going right through the middle. Then I'm going to remove the extra cardstock here so I can still see the tick marks, and they're right up against the edge. I'm going to get started by visually connecting this tick mark to that one right along the blade of my trimmer. Then I am going to trim along this side one more time to make sure I have a 90-degree angle here. So I'm actually going to flip this upside down to make sure that the side we just cut is at the bottom. And I will trim just the littlest sliver. Okay. Now, when I put this in here, I can just line up the bottom tick mark or the top one, and I will know that it's straight and it goes very quickly. Okay, here's my coffee for your sanity. And I am going to trim this down before I foil it. So I'm going to put it back in my trimmer, and I'm going to put, there's a period on this because it's like, I mean it. My kids do this. They say something and then they say period, like you can't argue with it. So I'm going to line up that period right with this inside guard of the finger guard. And then I'll flip and do the same on the other side so my margins are the same. And then there's my sentiment. You can skip this part, but I am going to hot foil, okay? I have a MINC machine, which is like a fancy laminator, and the Pink and Main Cheerfoil has changed my life, right? I felt like sometimes I would get great results and sometimes I wouldn't. I've had zero problems with this foil. And this roll is 6¼ inches by 25 feet. That's the other thing. Foiling always felt kind of expensive. And now I'm like, well, I have 25 feet and I have it in lots of colors. So we're just going to go for it. A couple important things. I have my MINC machine right now on my self-healing mat. I will not leave it here for more than 5 minutes because this mat will warp with heat. Like the heat from my laptop can warp it. So be careful with that. I have cut a little piece of foil and I am going to brush the foil off and my sentiment. If there's any dust, any little hairs or anything in between the foil and the toner, this is not gonna work. I'm not gonna get a great impression, okay? Essentially, that toner is tiny pieces of plastic that melt when they run through here, and it makes this foil stick to it. So I just wanna make sure there's nothing in between that toner and the foil. A carrier sheet comes with this. I don't know where mine is. I haven't known for a very long time. So I have just a piece of copy paper. And I am gonna run this through. Setting 2 works best for me. Sometimes setting 3, but honestly, hotter is not better. Once it comes out, another important piece is to let this cool, right? So let the plastic reharden so it's really sticking to that foil. You can do this with a regular laminator. I have a junk laminator and it wasn't working really well for me, but the Royal Sovereign is supposed to be really, really good. And I think you can get it on Amazon and it's not very expensive. So something to keep in mind. Now that this is cool, I can peel it back and it's so perfect and it's so pretty. Look at that. All right, I have my foiled sentiment that's about 1/4 of an inch, and then I have this strip that is 3/8 of an inch wide. But you know, just eyeball it, make it a little bit bigger because this is not an exact science. I'm gonna add it to one end and make sure that the 3 sides, top, bottom, and left, have the same margin. Okay, and then I'm just gonna bring it in here and very carefully start trimming until it looks the same. Tiny little slivers. That's it. I'm gonna add this, I think, right over top of my coffee cup. Like, that feels right to me. Alternatively, you could put it up here, right? If you had some kind of other focal image, you could add it at the bottom. Just kind of see what works for your design. I think it's important to note that this front area, that blue pattern paper is 2 3/4, yeah, 2 3/4 by 3 3/4, which is the same size as our large format sentiments. So you could also put one of those in there, right? The shine, it's so pretty. To finish this off, I'm gonna add some gold pearls from Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm gonna just be really careful here. I'm not putting anything really big right underneath that fold line. And that finishes off card number 2. It's got a little bit of shine. It's got a super simple die cut. We dressed up the sentiment. I know that normally there's like the really basic version of the video and then there's the stepped up, and we just went for it. So I hope you had fun. So that finishes up our 2 card projects for today. I hope you like these. I had a lot of fun with them. I like them so much more than the ones I made the first time around. If you are interested, there is a free printable that has all of our coffee and caffeine sentiments, right? Coffee at the top, and then we kind of move into other caffeine and tea. There's all these 1 3/4 inch circle sentiments, but then also I've removed the circle here. If you have ideas for other sentiment themes, I would love to know. Put it in the comments below. If you can give me a sample sentiment, just so I get a sense of the tone that you like, that would be amazing. If I missed anything in the Australian and British spelling, let me know, because I'm a little out of my comfort zone there. We also have all of the strip sentiments and the 4 different fonts. All of this comes in the same printable. Then we have our card sketch. Remember, you can make this as just a flat card. You do not have to make a pop-up. All those measurements are here, but then there are also measurements for the pop-up versions we just made with the card base in the front panel. Believe it or not, we will still do a more stepped up version of this next week. And I'm so excited. I'm really, really excited about that. So if you would like the free printable, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel and then click more or show more below the video, and it will unpack the description box and you will find the download all the way down at the bottom of the description. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I appreciate it every single time. and I will see you next time. So here's our printable, and it is completely free. All I ask is that you subscribe to my channel, and this one is jam-packed. We have all of our coffee sentiments, and then we kind of move into other caffeine and tea. Go Diet Coke drinkers. It comes with or without a circle. So if you want to use a different shape or a different size to cut them out, you certainly can. If you have ideas for other sentiments, I want to know about them. Put them in the comments below. Maybe it's a theme, maybe it's a particular sentiment. If it's a theme and you can give me a sample sentiment, that gives me a sense of the tone that you like, and that's really, really helpful. And then you can get all those same sentiments in strip sentiment form, and we have it in 4 different fonts. People seem to really like this new scripty font. If you have thoughts on that, like it's too small or you like it better or whatever it is, please put that in the comments. That's really helpful for me. And then for our card sketch, you can use the measurements on the side to make a completely flat A2 card, but we stepped it up immediately and made 2 pop-up cards today. Believe it or not, there's another video next week where we're going to step it up even more. We'll use this gift card holder as well. And that's it. So then to get the printable, you can click more or show more down below the video, and you can scroll all the way to the bottom. Again, I do ask that you subscribe to my channel, but the download is completely free. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I hope you'll give the pop-up a try, and I will see you next time.